have a close relationship. Consider that from a geographical point of view, Africa is not that far away from Italy, because we have also to deal with the flow of immigrant issues. And this flow of immigrants starts from the Sahel region, and therefore during these years, last years, we also signed many treaties, agreements with many African countries. Our objective is to strengthen the economic relationship and also the development aid. We consider it as a very useful means and tools to avoid that people are obliged to leave their country, and we are doing our best also with the Northern African states. We do consider also in particular the Mediterranean region. The Southern Mediterranean is a very vital area. If you don't have security and stability in this part of the world, this will affect all other parts of the world. You are rightly, Australians are rightly very much focused on the Asian Pacific area. We are rightly very much focused on the Southern Mediterranean, and we think it's also our duty to do our best to preserve the stability and the peace in this region. We have a very strong presence. We want to avoid piracy acts in Somalia, and we have a strong presence, military presence, because it's our interest. And besides, I forgot to tell you before that Italy also feels a moral obligation with certain African countries, especially Somalia, Ethiopia. You mentioned Eritrea, Ethiopia, the former Abyssinia, because these were former Italian colonies, and I think it's also our duty to have a strong presence there. These are very important markets. We have an excellent relationship with all these countries. India. Let's start with India. Of course, with India, we are strengthening our economic bilateral relationship. There are Indian companies investing in Italy. Very interesting for them in our steel, if I'm not wrong, in our steel industry. We had some years ago a problem because I don't know if you are aware, but we had an issue with two Italian soldiers who were blocked by the Indians because they had this anti-piracy activity off the coast of Somalia, but then there was an accident, and they were accused to have killed some fishermen, and this created some problem. But thanks God, now we have solved the issue, and I would say that we have a very strong relation. By the way, I don't know if you know, but Sonia Gandhi, she has an Italian citizenship. By the way, if you go to India, there are still also, there are many cars which were originally came from Italy, then readapted to the Indian market. But of course, it's a huge market, huge potentials. But you know, India is still to open more. When it comes to China, we have a very strong relationship with China. It started already in the 12th century with Marco Polo, our explorer. Since the period of Venice, we had this strong presence. We had almost indirect links, trade links with China since ever. We are doing very well. I read some figures. Our export, our bilateral trade with China is going very well. We have hundreds of Italian companies. There are many Chinese investments in Italy. I mentioned, for example, two football teams, Inter and Milan soccer teams, have been acquired by China. Pirelli, probably you know, the producer of tires, they are being purchased by Chinese. We have Chinese investment funds in our energy sector, realtors. And besides, Italy is very interested in this One Belt, One Road initiative, because the final the point of arrival it would be Trieste and Venice. So therefore, we have really an interest to strengthen our relationship with China. That's it, and probably China is our first bilateral trade partner in Asia. By the way, Australia is the fourth one, and not bad. Our second one is Japan, the third is South Korea, and the fourth is Australia in the Asian Pacific region. And coming to Indonesia, Indonesia, we consider Indonesia a very important country potentially, because also from a demographic point of view, it will be within maybe 5-10 years among the first 10 economies in the world. We have many companies. It has a very interesting market for Italian companies because, of course, it's our interest to strengthen our presence in the whole ASEAN area. And finally, I would also like to underline that Italy, having an open trade and multilateral-based economy, we are very much interested, and we look favorable to all regional agreements in the field of free trade. And you know, there's a lot of things happening. No, I'm not referring only to the bilateral trade agreements signed by Australia with Japan, South Korea, China, but I'm referring to the signature of the TPP, which will take place, 11, which will take place, if I'm not wrong, in March, in Santiago. Okay. Because we are interested to export. First of all, to strengthen our bilateral relationship in the political field. I forgot to mention before that Italy is ready to give its maximum support for the early negotiation for a free trade agreement between the European Union and Australia. We have proposed to be the best, very good friends of Australia, and we already are doing this because Australia, as you know, probably is very much interested to start as soon as possible negotiating for a free trade agreement, and you can count on the support of Italy. I'm expecting strengthening of our political relationship, strengthening of our relationship in the foreign policy, in the defense field. Of course, I'm hope that Italian companies will strengthen their economic presence here. Of course, it would be wonderful if we will win important tenders in the forthcoming years. I'm not only referring to Fincantieri, but for example, our infrastructure companies are participating in multi-billion dollars projects here in. By the way, in Western Australia, we have more than 40 Italian companies. Maybe not everyone knows. And this in the economic field. I would like to preserve the success story of the Italian language courses in Australia. Italy is still the second most talked language in Australia after Chinese. More than 320,000 students of Italian language here in Australia. 80% of those don't have even an Italian background. This means that there's a culture, we like to strengthen our cultural presence. By the way, yesterday we had probably I don't know if I would really invite you to visit the exhibition of the Galleria Corsini, the masterpieces of the Baroque and Renaissance period. I think it's the first time in the history of Australia that you have here right now in Perth pieces of Caravaggio, Raffaello, Tintoretto, and the great. And I think this is a great event. I hope that Australians will continue to visit our beautiful country. By the way, Australia is the second most visited country in Europe after United Kingdom by Australian tourists. These are amazing figures. Finally, I would like also to mention our bilateral relationship in the scientific field. We have more than 190 agreements between Italian universities and Italian and Australian universities and research institutes. We have an excellent bilateral collaboration in the scientific field. We recently signed, I forgot to tell you, a bilateral protocol on scientific collaboration. I signed it with the Minister Science and Industry Synodinos. We have excellent relationship, especially in the field of physics, astrophysics. We have hundreds of researchers here, and we are both part of the SKA project, the Square Kilometre Array, which, by the way, based here in Western Australia, as you know. Therefore, we have an excellent relationship. We have to continue on this path. Australia is a like-minded country, and during my 4.5 years here in Australia, really I appreciate that, in my view, Australia is the most successful multicultural society in the world, and I'm deeply grateful to Australia how they have how they dealt with the Italians. The Italians are very well integrated, and I think it's our we are very grateful for this. Australia will be, in the forthcoming year, a regional power. You have a very strong economy. You have the rule of law. You have like-minded country. We are like-minded countries. In my view, we have complementary economies, and we have a very strong manufacturing industry, and we have to strengthen our relationship in certain sectors. I'm referring mainly to infrastructure, but not only, and defense. And that's it, to summarize. And we have also to collaborate to strengthen our relationship in the security and foreign policy.